I just finished watching a Japanese movie. The title is Killing for Prosecution, and I'm going to share to you some of my thoughts. Watching a Japanese film, however, could prove to be a very big challenge for a lot of people. It's primarily because so much of the Japanese culture is embedded in how they make films. And that's how it should be, I guess. Not should be, but it is natural for any filmmaker to have all of your influences that shape the way that you are as a person, as an artist. That is, of course, going to come out in any art piece that you create. However, what's interesting with Japanese films is their lack of interest in adjusting to the international audience. For countries like the Philippines or even China, there is this consciousness and this awareness that there has to be some adjustments made if there is any desire to capture the international market. But that doesn't seem to exist in Japanese films. It seems to be so apparent that they have absolutely no interest to communicate with the international market. And if that the international market has any interest in understanding their films, the adjustment will have to be made by the international market, not by the Japanese filmmakers. I have found out, though, that my discomfort lies in two major aspects of it. One is the transcription. The Japanese language is a very, very beautiful language. They have so many words that describe things that we can't even articulate in 1,000 words. That's how powerful their language is. We're left with half-assed attempt to communicate the main message, but they leave out all the beauty of the sensibility of the language because it's just impossible to translate. The second one is acting. This is actually a little harder for me to grasp and understand. If you watch Japanese films, actors can actually feel so stiff. For example, they're playing out a scene where they finally explode, like the highlight of the film, where all the emotions are pouring out of the actors and stuff. It feels like they're holding back. And then on scenes where they are supposed to hold back, like, there are scenes when they're supposed to be angry but they're holding back, it feels as if they're holding back too much. It seems like they're faking the holding back, like they're not actually holding back and they actually want to show you that they're angry. I hope you get what I mean. It wasn't until recently, like in the last 5 years, that it actually struck me, something clicked in one of the movies that I was watching, that this is just how the Japanese are. There's always a certain finesse in their movements. Like everything is calculated. There's a certain degree of elegance. You can see it in the way that they walk and in the way that they talk. Their steps are very light and very minimal. Like they don't want to move an inch more than they're supposed to move. They're so efficient in the use of their energy and in the use of their bodies. And we're just not used to that. Like Americans and other Asian countries, we're just so emotional. We feel as though we have an unlimited supply of energy. And so we just pour it out. When we're angry, we just show it. And so if you watch somebody who doesn't behave that way, it feels fake. But the Japanese, they're above it. As I've said, there's a certain level of sophistication. It's as if every move that they make is for a purpose. And so those are the two things that you have to understand when you're watching Japanese films, especially this movie. Forgive me if I'm going to read the names, but Killing the Prosecution stars 3 of the biggest movie actors in Japan. Takuya Kimura, Kazunari Ninomiya, and Yuriko Yoshitaka. Takuya is known as the ratings king in Japan because almost every TV show that he starred in has gone up the rating scale. It became number 1. Ninomiya is a member of the most popular and probably the most influential boy band in Japan, Arashi, who coincidentally announced their hiatus. They're going to go on hiatus starting next year, but that's another post. Nino is arguably the most successful actor of the 5 members of Arashi. Yuriko, on the other hand, starred in one of my favorite manga that was turned into a movie. The title is We Were There. She's a very good actress. It was directed by Masato Harada. But Nino in this movie is a prosecutor, a new one, and he is under the wings of Takuya. When Nino got his very first case, Takuya trusted him with the case and told him, make sure that we get the guy. They already have a suspect. They got a suspect real quick, and so he instructed Nino to make sure that they build a very strong case. Until he realized that Takuya is as good in prosecuting as he is in plotting his revenge. The way that Harada unraveled the story mirrored the complexities of unraveling a case. It's interesting because it felt as if we're a case file. We're the case file. That we started out completely blank, empty. We're this folder with nothing in it. Absolutely no idea what we're dealing with except the names of the victims and the suspects. And as the story progresses, as the film progresses, then we start getting more and more evidence, more and more documents, and we start getting filled with information. But getting all of those evidences, getting all of these papers and all of this information does not necessarily equate to understanding what's actually happening with the case. Because just like a case file, people will just put everything in there, not necessarily organize it. And it took a girl, which is Yuriko, just like in any situation in life, it took a girl to organize everything and make sense of everything that was going on. And that the storytelling, the way the story was unraveling, it was mirrored in every aspect of the film, even in the production design and the cinematography. In the beginning of the film, everything seems clean and organized, and even the way the characters were introduced, it was so systematic, it was so in order. You know, this is the name of the character, and this is how long he has been in the job, and this is what he does, and he goes home, and this is the relationship he has with his families, and these are the things that he likes to do, and blah blah blah. So you get to know the character, and then you see how the design, the cinematography is. It's also clean. There's not a lot of clutter. But then once the case gets in, and once we go into a deep dive and actually investigate the case, then everything becomes cluttered. And that is reflected on the production design, that every scene is so chaotic that you don't know where to look, where not to look, what it is that you're looking at. And even the characters become very, very chaotic. That everything you thought you knew and understand about the character when the story began, it starts to disintegrate. Like you start doubting what it is that you know. I think that's a brilliant way on how the actual narrative, the actual storytelling was reflected even on the physicality of the movie. It is also very interesting, actually brilliant, on how the director explored the characters of Takuya and Nino in a parallel way. It is, in the beginning of the movie, it was very evident that the two have different styles in how they prosecute, and even in their personality. Nino started soft and meek and shy almost, but there's a certain grandness and air of confidence in Takuya, which is expected because he's a very good prosecutor. But when they meet, the first time that the two characters met, Hakada, the director, managed to switch it right there and then. Instantly, in the very first time that they met, he was able to switch the character of the two. And it was even verbalized. I don't want to spoil it, but it was even verbalized. And I thought it was very interesting that he so easily disintegrated and destroyed what he set up in 30 seconds. And then as the two characters progress, he strengthened the switch of the characters. So much so that Takuya, being the grand character, the one that's big and grand and imposes himself in almost every scene, it was him who imploded. And Nino, the newcomer, the shy and meek newcomer, was the one who exploded. And yet, they still ended up in the same place. The two of them ended up in the same condition, and neither of them was able to pursue justice. Both of them know what's wrong and who's to blame and who should go to jail, but neither of them can do anything about it. And most importantly, they both know that the only other person they should get angry at more than each other is themselves. There's also something noteworthy about the performance of Nino. It is very difficult for boy band members to be taken seriously as an actor. I have not seen enough of Nino's work to actually recognize and see if he is indeed a good actor or he's just in a lot of films because people like him. So I don't know. But in this film, I would dare say that he is a very intelligent actor. His performance was so intelligent. It is so intelligent that I actually didn't realize that he tricked me as an audience until several hours after I watched the film. In that scene where he's supposed to explode, this is the pinnacle of his performance. He was so angry and he was pouring himself out, and I felt so detached. And my immediate reaction was that this is bad acting. First reaction, I felt like he's so fake. I felt like he was holding something back, that he was hiding something from me. Well, this is a mediocre performance. And then it wasn't until later on that I realized that he was in fact holding something back. He was faking the anger. And that performance he was putting on actually even frustrated himself. And so when I was analyzing the film in my head, I realized, well, that was a brilliant performance. He set me up so that I will forget. I think that's the key. He was able to set me up so that I will forget that he is going to fake this moment. And the last one would be the lack of hero in the movie. Unlike maybe 99% of the movies that I have seen, there isn't any hero in this film. There was nobody to save the day, nobody to rescue anybody. Everyone was so flawed, everyone was bad, and yet the director was able to portray their humanity enough and strongly enough for me to sympathize. And so he knew how to tell the story, and that was very, very evident in this one. And so I would strongly recommend that you go check it out. This was a film released last year, 2018. I do not think this is available on Netflix. So if you want to know where to get it, let me know. I'll point you to the right direction. And see you next time.